Sometimes I look up at the rafters and I see my jersey up there with Jordan Worthy. I remember being so excited that it went in that I thought I had a buzzer beater. I thought the game was done. Wayne Ellington's like grabbing me saying, there's time left, there's time left. And I was like, what? The game's not over? Then I looked down, I'm bleeding, blood's everywhere. I thought it was DeMarcus Nelson. Man, that was probably, that's a top 3 loss in my career. Take my whole basketball career, that one really stung. I remember I was having a good game against New York and I felt like somebody bumped me and I was pissed. I was ready. I was like, turned around, I saw it was Ron. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna mess with Ron.
We're living in a good old days. Take a look around. Ain't it funny how feels like we're in a good old days.
Welcome back to Glory Daze, an Almost Friday Media Original. I'm Johnny Manziel. Today on the show, we have an absolute legend, a UNC icon, an NCAA national champion. Please welcome to the show, Tyler Hansbrough. How's life now? What have you been up to? How are things?
It's funny, whenever you stop playing basketball, it's like, man, I kind of felt a little lost. But then I started catching my stride, spending time with my family. And, at some point I was like, man, I didn't know I could have this much fun not playing basketball. So, I don't have everything figured out since I stopped playing, but I'm enjoying life, catching up with family, and I'm happy. So
heard getting into a new passion of pickleball, playing a little bit. How's that been? Just something to kind of, I'm a big golfer now, so it's kind of something that when your sport goes away, when you're done playing, you kind of get into something else and kind of dive into it a little bit of the same way you did, professional sports. How's that been?
I used to play a lot of golf. I realize you'll never be as good as you want in golf, ever, no matter how much work you put into it. I love pickleball. I used to play golf about every day. And then my brother and his wife, my sister-in-law, they played a lot of tennis. And so tennis requires a lot of skill. And so pickleball, you can pick up a paddle and anybody can pretty much play. And so, I wasn't about to try to play tennis with them. So we started playing pickleball. We got competitive. There's a lot of trash talk. It's a little faster pace and more my vibe than golf. So, it's just like golf. I'll never be as good as I want. My body, from playing basketball for so long, my knees, I feel like I'm going from injury to injury on the pickleball court. Everybody laughs at me, but no, I love the game. I play it about every other day. I love it.
Sick. So you're getting after it every other day. You're playing, 3-4 days a week. You're fucking ripping.
It's like the bug with golf. It's addicting. Yeah, people get it. It's addicting.
Yeah, I get to that point with golf too, where I'm playing, 3-4 days a week and really just getting after it. But you're right about that. Never really being, as good as you want to be, but still, you have your moments wherever you hit a shot, or I'm sure it's the same thing in pickleball where you make a play and you're like, all right, I still have a little bit of that in me.
Yeah, the thing on the golf course is like mentally it challenged you. Like, I always ended up in the woods and, I couldn't hit my 3-wood if I was in the middle of the fairway. Why do I think I'm going to hit it in the woods 5 feet from the green, try to be Superman? It's like staying disciplined. It's all the same thing on the pickleball court. Like, know your game. Don't try to be Superman, and you'll be all right. But, as an athlete, when you work so hard for like I dedicated a lot of my life to basketball, practicing, and then once that's gone, you kind of don't really know how to approach another sport any other way.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're probably grinding out on the golf course. I'm grinding on the pickleball course. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's definitely something to still keep you in that competitive nature a little bit, especially when it goes away. Yeah, as we kind of get into the start of your basketball career, high school, you're an absolute monster, Gatorade Player of the Year, All-American. When you get to that level in high school, when is the first point that you really start to think, I have a future in this and I can really do this?
I really felt like I could be good probably my freshman year in high school. And I had grown, it's not like I was always tall. I'd grown 6 or 7 inches in about 3 months. And so I basically went from playing point guard to, being like a 6'6", 180 freshman in high school. And so, I was a real skinny dude. I loved the game. I actually just loved playing basketball. And so kind of where I grew my love for basketball was playing on the playground and every day after school, going out there and competing. And then, I was competitive, and so I always tried to figure out, how I could improve my game to win more on the playground. And if there weren't people playing, then I was, kind of working on elbow jump shots or something like that I can do to improve. Just because I loved the game of basketball. It's not like, I wanted to play. I just love playing basketball. It didn't matter if it's NBA or China. I just love playing.
What do you think of when you think back your playing days for high school basketball and getting ready for recruitment in college? Was there a certain game where you just started to it started to really click in that, or when did you feel like you started to get recruited a little bit?
My first scholarship offer was from Southern Illinois, Matt Painter. He was coaching there. Chris Lowry came down and watched pickup, and I think I was a freshman, and I was moving playing. He said, "Man, you can come to SIU. You got a scholarship if you want it, but I think you'll go somewhere bigger than us." And that's when I kind of thought I'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm from a very small town, so it's about 3 hours from an airport. And so, I had such this was such a bad thought looking back on it. It's like, man, I got to go to a big city so people can see me. I don't think anybody would ever notice me in Poplar Bluff, a town of 17,000, which, is totally wrong. I got to the point where there's a lot of college coaches coming into Poplar Bluff, flying into St. Louis, making that drive, and that's kind of gave me confidence that I could be a pretty good player.
Yeah, obviously freshman year, being able to get a scholarship offer too, and being able to have some security that all right, I'm good enough at this to be able to go to the next level and be able to do it. You ended up going to UNC, obviously an acclaimed, unbelievable basketball program. What went into your final decision for that recruitment and ended up choosing there?
I grew up a Missouri Tiger fan. My whole family, being from Missouri, I watched them. It's kind of tradition. Like me and my family, we'd go up to St. Louis. We would watch the Illinois-Mizzou rivalry game every year. And me and my brothers, we always loved it. And we were huge Tiger fans. And the program got into some trouble. And so some coaches were being fired. They didn't know if they were going to be eligible for the NCAA tournament, which was a big deal for me. And so that kind of opened the door to other schools. And, it really came down between Tubby Smith, who was at Kentucky at the time. Billy Donovan recruited me really hard at Florida. And Coach Williams and also Joe Holliday, his assistant, they both recruited me really hard. And honestly, I developed probably the best relationship with Coach Williams and also Coach Holliday. And I would say probably me and Coach Holliday had, it was kind of a natural connection. I don't know what it was, but he's still one of the best people I've ever met in my life. And so I just felt like they recruited me hard, and also our relationship and them staying in contact and our chemistry, I felt like UNC was the best choice. My dad actually really liked Coach Williams as well, so that had a huge influence. And, I couldn't have made a better decision looking back, on it. And, I was pretty lucky to play for Coach Williams, and I didn't know the value of playing for a coach like him at the time. I was, honestly, I didn't even like UNC that much. I didn't know much about the program. I didn't really gel with a lot of the guys on the team. And I took a visit to Kansas, even though I wasn't, really, they weren't really in consideration at the time. Something happened. I wasn't going to go to Kansas, but those were all Coach Williams guys. And I was like, man, I had a lot of fun on my Kansas visit. And I connected. I felt like those are good dudes. And it's not a knock on the current players at UNC, but I was like, Coach Williams recruited all those guys.
Yeah.
And so those are the type of players that play for Coach Williams. And so that had a little bit of a factor to me going to UNC, because I knew he would get guys and high-quality guys that I connected with.
Yeah. I mean, obviously a school with rich history, big-time players. You got Jordan Worthy, Vince Carter, just a bunch of greats. How'd it feel coming into that program when you got there, knowing that you were following in some legends' footsteps?
I was oblivious to it.
Yeah.
I was a small-town kid. I was more caught up with, I'm from Poplar Bluff, Missouri. I get a chance to play for North Carolina. Yeah, I was also kind of grinding. I didn't sit back, and look at this is where MJ went. And, MJ didn't really, he came around every once in a while, but, it's not like MJ's just going to walk through and you're going to walk it. I mean, it's hard to kind of approach him. someone of his status, but I really probably didn't appreciate or understand the tradition until I left. And sometimes I look up at the rafters and I see my jersey up there with Jordan Worthy. And, you know, Phil Ford's probably my all-time favorite Tar Heel. He was an Olympic gold medalist, an old school guy, one of the nicest dudes, and always checks in on me. And so guys like him have helped build that program too. And like North Carolina, from a player perspective, in my opinion, like Phil Ford kind of set the foundation for like the MJs, the Vince Carters, and he is still around in the community today. And the one thing that I think sets UNC apart from other schools is, you know, I think more alumni go back and they have that close feeling, kind of like that. Everyone talks about being a family, but UNC is a family. Like, there's more players, more former players that go back and train and play pickup basketball in UNC than anywhere else. Yeah. And I realized that when I was in the NBA and guys just didn't go back to, you know, their schools and train. I went back every offseason. So did a lot of other pros.
Yeah, that's got to have, I mean, to be able to have that bond, whether you're in school with those guys or not, to be able to, you know, still have a relationship, feel like a family. Obviously, being back there now a little bit has to feel great that, you know, throughout the years they've built a good enough program to be able to make it to where, you know, all the time, sometimes guys don't feel comfortable going back or they just kind of move on with their life or whatever. So it's dope that's kind of how the culture is there.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, as like a young kid or a young college kid to have like Sean May, Marvin Williams, guys in the NBA come back and play against you and give you advice, and then like you get to work on your game with them. Yep. Like, you're going to improve, and not every school gets that.
Yeah. Football season is back, and my partner Underdog wants to make it a lot more exciting for you. Join the millions of fans who played on Underdog last year. With their Pick'em game, you can win up to 1,000 times your money by making sports picks. It's time to turn those takes into cash by going higher or lower on player stats, like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and plenty more to choose from. Submit entries including NFL, college football, or mix and match across your other favorite sports to win big. Here are my money picks of the week. Underdog is available in 30-plus states, including California, Florida, Texas, and even Canada. So what are you waiting for? Sign up now and deposit using promo code Johnny to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. You know, you get there, you get the name Psycho T freshman year as well. Did you like the nickname when it first started, or did it feel justified in the type of player you were?
You know, it had nothing to do with really the type of player I was. The Psycho T nickname, one of my best friends right now, our strength coach for UNC, Jonas Haslem, gave me that nickname because I was a super quiet kid my freshman year. Honestly, I was kind of blown away because I'm a small town and I'm like on this big university. I'd get lost every time I went on campus. And I was quiet, I didn't say much. And so one day I'm in there and I'm yelling at myself, trying to pump myself up because I didn't want to work. And I was like, man, I got to get some type of energy. So I'm yelling and trying to pump myself up. And he's like, man, you're psycho. And so I don't know why everyone caught on to that nickname. I thought it was cool. The one thing it did do is it gave people a perception of me that's not really me. Like, everyone thinks I'm crazy. A lot of fans would come up to me expecting this, you know, crazy lunatic. And, you know, I'm a pretty quiet, chill dude. And I felt like sometimes they walked away disappointed. And but I didn't mind the nickname. You know, it is what it is. The fans liked it.
Yeah. You know, what was it like playing for Roy Williams? You know, obviously, you know, he came there a couple of years before. You get there in 2005. You know, when you look back now on how his career panned out and how he was, you know, how was it playing for him in those early years?
It's not easy. I mean, it wasn't easy. And, you know, playing for a great coach like Coach Williams, it's not supposed to be easy. And, you know, I think he pushed us. You know, the conditioning and the style of play Coach Williams ran at UNC and Kansas, he's known for getting up and down and running. And so the one thing I remember is how much we used to have to run in practice. And if you weren't running at the pace that he thought you should run, he was on you. That's one thing he would never let slide. And the one thing that he really taught me is how to consistently work every single day and, like, you know, go into the gym and get something done, like a little bit better. And I think that is something that is super important to me because, he taught me a lot about work ethic and staying consistent. And, I think you can apply that in other areas of life as well, just outside of sports. Still grinding, even though, you're not going to be the player you want overnight. It takes time. And it's the same thing with the team. And I really feel like every practice under Coach Williams, I don't think there was ever one practice where I walked away and was like, man, Coach didn't really want to be in practice. Like, if he was at practice, he was focused. He was working on the team. There was really no, there's no goofing out. Like, we were getting better if we were in the gym working, and that's something that's always stuck with me.
Yeah. Where do you rank him among NCAA all-time coaches?
He's the best ever. And, I'm biased. I played for him, but I know him. And I think what he's taught his players and former players, I think that's what great coaches do. And he's also one of the most honest people I've ever met, and I've really respected him for that. And I knew, that was actually a big factor in why I went to UNC is when he was recruiting me, I remember him telling me, I'm not going to guarantee you a starting position, playing time. I would be shocked if you didn't play for me, but you got to earn that. And that's something that I remember. I was like, I kind of like that because he's not going to BS you or finesse you and tell you things and you get there and it's totally different. Every year he told me what I needed to hear, whether that's like, after my freshman year, where I would go, potentially NBA draft. I mean, he was honest. He gave me honest feedback on everything. That's something I always took away from him as well. Yeah,
I think it's something you kind of have to have, and something that, throughout the recruiting process there, I'm sure in your position there's a lot of guys blowing smoke and being able to tell you things that, you may not even feel like they'll be true. But, to have a guy who comes in, keeps it that way, keeps the honesty and that integrity the same way throughout. Mm-hmm. The rivalry between Duke and UNC is obviously as iconic as it gets. You didn't lose one game on their court, while you were playing at USC. What was that rivalry like for you, and how was it going into their house and beating them every time?
I love that feeling now, especially looking back. And I don't look at it like we went over there and dominated. I look at it as like there's a class at Duke that never beat their rival on their home court, and they'll never know what it feels like to beat their biggest rival on their home court. Yep. And I love knowing that. Someone mentioned that to me, and it's always stuck with me. I hate to call him out. I mean, Greg Paulus will never know what it feels like to beat UNC at Cameron. And I get a lot of joy out of that, knowing that there's other players that in that same class that will never know that feeling. But that's not an easy place to play. And everyone always looks at me. We had a loaded team. We had Ty Lawson, Danny Green. We were more talented than those Duke teams those years as well.
I mean, obviously the intensity of the rivalry is one that, goes without saying. What was the rivalry like for you in itself?
My freshman year, I remember they had JJ and Sheldon. They came over to the Smith Center and they smacked us. And I remember walking away being just totally exhausted because there was so much hype around the rivalry, and there was so many, there was such a build up to it that I was pushing myself too hard for the game. And when the game finally happened, I was like, man, I'm completely exhausted before tip. And now, Sheldon Williams, he was a big dude. We ran. I remember walking away from that game. They smacked us, and I remember I'm going to approach this game a little bit different. And when they did smack us on our home court, I think it kind of focused us a little bit more, which at the end of the year, our last conference game was at Cameron. And one of my all-time favorite wins my freshman year was going over to Duke and beating JJ and Sheldon on their senior night in Cameron. That was a special feeling. And also, they were one of the best teams in college. My freshman year, 05-06, we weren't really projected to do much. We were kind of just a tough team. We weren't as talented, and there was a lot of, analysts that didn't really give us a lot of credit or expect much of us. So that was a huge win for us to go over there and smack one of the best teams in the country.
I have to ask about the Duke game where Gerald Henderson broke your nose. I know you guys are made up now, but let's go back to that moment of how it was and what it felt like being there.
Oh man, so I'm at the free throw line, and what I remember about the play is somehow I'd missed that free throw, and I remember getting my own rebound, and I think I had a little pump fake, and I was going back with my right hand, and out of nowhere, I get hit in the face. I didn't know how bad it was or what happened. Then I looked down, I'm like, I'm bleeding, blood's everywhere. And I thought it was DeMarcus Nelson. And the first reaction was like, I'm going over there and I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to hit me in my face. I'm going to hit you I'm going to figure out how I can get you too. And so my teammate grabbed me and, looking back at the play, I would have been an idiot if I went over there and fought DeMarcus Nelson because he didn't hit me. But the actual hit didn't hurt that much, and I was surprised that I had a broken nose, but there was a lot of blood. And the next morning, I guess because I had so much adrenaline, I didn't really feel the pain. But the next morning, it was pretty painful. And, I was pissed off. And that was the other thing that kind of made me mad is all the analysts saying it wasn't a cheap shot. Yeah. It was a cheap shot. I mean, I've played basketball my whole life. You know a cheap shot when you see one. Why would you defend it? And that kind of rubbed me wrong. But, also I like the fact that, the students at UNC, they all put these signs out, all the frat dudes and everything, F Gerald. And so when I would drive down through frat court, they'd have all these signs and all this stuff. I was like, yeah. And
you loved it.
Yeah, I liked it. And my whole career, I remember I had made up my mind I'm going to get him back in some capacity. I was going to give him a dirty one too. And it never really happened like that, but it was always in the back of my mind when there was an opportunity. I never really got it, but we're over that now. We've actually made up. It's kind of a good dude. Yeah. And so besides him destroying my face, I actually like Gerald off the court. He's a great guy. And, we've talked it through and, whatever, but he's a good dude.
Who do you look back and think, greatest Duke villains of all time? Guys you just really didn't like to play against or just couldn't stand to even look at?
Man, I just feel like there's a lot of them. You got to look at JJ. JJ's a guy that everyone hated. He kind of embraced that too. Then you have to go Christian Laettner. He was kind of the guy kind of started the whole thing. I feel like he's the godfather of, the Duke mentality. Wojciechowski, he was an assistant. He's a guy that probably, was one of those guys that a lot of people like to hate. He was a floor slapper. Who else? Greg Paulus. He's a guy that a lot of fans like to pick on too. He didn't have the career that JJ did, but he was one of those guys that kind of embraced that Duke mentality that everyone loved to kind of go after. But Christian Laettner for sure, JJ Redick. I would throw Greg Paulus in there, Wojciechowski. Those guys. That just comes to my mind right now. I'm probably leaving somebody out.
I'm sure there's some in there for sure, but a long list of some people on the Duke side that won't get a lot of love from you for sure. So let's talk about junior year, which was nothing short. Just couldn't have been more legendary. National Player of the Year, led the ACC in scoring and rebounding. How'd you really take your game to the next level, and what was it about that made it so special?
I was really motivated for my junior year. My sophomore year, I didn't really feel like I made as big of a jump as I needed to make or improve my game. I guess because I had such a good freshman year, I kind of got happy with my game and didn't work like I needed to. And then I got humbled. I didn't really, I know I had a good year, but also like I didn't make the improvement that I felt like I should have. And so after my sophomore year, we got bounced in the NCAA tournament from Georgetown. They were a good team, but we had a big lead late, and it was kind of a meltdown on our behalf. And so it motivated pretty much our whole team. And I put a lot of work in between that sophomore and junior year, and I was a little more hungry. I wasn't as satisfied like I was after my freshman year. And we had a lot of expectations. We had a lot of big-time players like Ty Lawson. He got hurt in the middle of the year, which he was such a big part of our offense and such a big player to our team. Like, I kind of had to take on a bigger role as well. And so I think that kind of inflated my stats just because he was hurt and kind of in and out of the lineup. which probably got me a little more recognition. And I played well in the ACC, which at that time historically it's the best conference in college basketball, and you can get a lot of attention if you have a good season in the ACC.
You guys win the ACC championship in 08, but you make an incredible shot against VTech in the ACC semifinals. It's still talked about to this day. Walk us through that. Was the play designed for you? And, what's something people really don't know about that moment in that game?
The play is actually called Long Beach. That's what we drew up. Coach Williams used to have this play, like a late game situation. It was kind of funny. I always kind of laughed because if we needed a bucket with about, I would say, 10 seconds or less, it's always like he was like, Long Beach, give me the board. And I always kind of laughed in my mind, like, because I knew we were going to run Long Beach because it's the only late game play that he draws up. And the play was designed for Ty to actually kind of come off a screen and have an ISO situation because he's so fast he can create his own shot and go at the rim, which he actually got a decent look. But I remember tracking the ball and watching his shot, and then I realized where the ball, I just anticipated the rebound really well. And I got to it. They did a poor job of boxing me out, and so allowed me to have kind of a free run at the ball, which, if you're a really good rebounder and you don't knock somebody or box them out, you're asking for them to get the rebound. If you look back at the play, I was fouled on the shot. I got swiped right there. I went up, kind of faded, hit it, and I remember being so excited that it went in that I thought I had a buzzer beater. I thought the game was done. I thought, went in, buzzer, I thought we won. If you look at it, Wayne Ellington's like grabbing me saying, there's time left. And I was like, what? The game's not over? And that I remember, running down the court, throwing my fist up, and then Wayne grabbing me and saying, we got to play defense. And I always laugh about that. But, yeah, that was everyone talks about that. That was exciting.
You guys make it to the Final Four that year, but, you guys ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw. What do you think went wrong in that game? And were they just on their A game that day? Or, how do you feel about that?
Man, that was probably – that's a top 3 loss in my career. If you take my whole basketball career, that one really stung. And you look at it because Coach Williams left Kansas to come to North Carolina. And their fan base, there were so many fans that were just angry at Coach for leaving. And I really wanted to win that game because I knew it would mean a lot to them. And we went out there and we didn't bring it in the first half. Like, we just didn't. We had a bad game, and Kansas played as good as they could have, and they came out and they hit us with a haymaker. And we fought back. We got close enough to the point where we made it a ball game. We were so exhausted from trying to get back in the game. We just didn't have the energy left. And they came out and played a really good game. They dominated us. They were a better team that night. That was a tough loss, especially because all the fans and the Coach Williams, situation.
Obviously after a loss like that, you go into the off season. Do you feel like you're thinking about maybe leaving? Did you test the NBA waters a little bit? Did you think about it, or you were like, fuck that? I'm getting to the point where I want to come and finish this thing out the right way, and obviously try and go win a ship.
The only time I really almost left was after my freshman year. I was a little homesick. I had high. Some people thought I could go high in the draft. It was a weak draft my freshman year. After my junior year, I wanted to win a national championship, and I was so close to breaking so many records. Coach Williams actually told me this. He's like, if you want to come back to school, like, there's a lot of players that went to school for 4 years and had great NBA careers. You can wait a year. Tim Duncan's a good example of a guy who went to college for 4 years at Wake Forest. Mm-hmm. Not many people had a better career. He had one of the best NBA careers of anybody, and I looked at it, I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I think one more year, I have the confidence in my game where I can improve and probably build off that. I'm not a guy who, I've got to go now because my stock's high. I think, I had the confidence where, if I left after my senior year, my stock's still going to be high because I'm a good player, not because the timing's right.
So let's get into the 09 team a little bit. The squad was stacked with talent that year. You guys have Ty Lawson again, Wayne Ellington, Danny Green. Was there a moment early on where you guys knew that, like, this could be our year? This was the real chance that we have?
Heck, we thought that
the year
last
before.
year. We thought we were the team. I looking back, even though Kansas dominated us the year prior, I've really felt like we're the best team in college basketball both years. But I think that the way we lost to Kansas really motivated guys like Ty Lawson, Wayne Ellington, and those guys are super talented. I mean, Ty's one of the best basketball players I've ever played with. He has a ton of talent, and he worked in the offseason. Like, he was motivated. He put a lot of work into his game. And I also think that having that, kind of taste of losing at the Final Four made us a little bit more focused and not as satisfied as just making it to the Final Four. I really felt like the year prior we were like, yeah, we got to the Final Four, like we accomplished something. But that 2009 year, no, we got to the Final Four, but like we got this far. Let's go ahead and win it. And that was kind of the attitude. We were a little bit more hungry. And I felt like we were more of a complete team in 2009. We had put some years in with each other. The chemistry was great. We worked, the whole off season together. And you know how it is, like in the summer, we were all in the weight room all the time. And I don't think there's a better, bonding or, chemistry building, environment than the weight room.
Are you still close to those guys to this day?
Oh, yeah. I talk to them every day. Everyone has their own little personality, but I talk to, we have a group text, and it's pretty active about every day.
Love that.
Yeah. And I like that because college, something that's missing is like you come in as a freshman and you leave as a senior, like those bonds are so important. And now with the portal and everything, guys I hate that, kids aren't getting that experience.
Yeah, there's a lot more bouncing around, a lot more fluidity to the whole thing. And then there's a lot of guys who, see it more now than ever, who are coming in for a year and you're gone. So to be able to have, a special bond like that with guys obviously being there for 4 years is awesome to see that something still sticks around like that. You got to get to the NCAA championship game. You guys versus Michigan State, you versus Draymond. Or what do you remember about heading into that game? And, nerves or, felt like you were ready to rock?
No, there was no nerves. We had beat them by 20 in December on the same court in Detroit. I really felt like as long as we just go out on the court and play our C game, I felt like we were going to win. Michigan State wasn't. They had made a good run in the tournament, but it's not like they just got hot at the right time. They weren't as talented as us, and that's not a knock to them. I think they would admit that. But Izzo's a really good coach, and he'd really coached Michigan State that year, and they got on a great run. But we were hungry. We were more talented. We ran them. We were a more complete team. I actually probably just played okay that championship game. Deion Thompson is a guy who was like a really solid college player who came out and had like a great start to the game. And we had guys that a lot of people didn't talk about, but if they were on another team, they would have been like a big-time player. But they just played their role, and we were super talented. And I think guys like him, defenses didn't focus on him as much. They'd focus on Ty, Wayne, me, and then Deion would go off, and then they realized, oh, this guy's hot. And then everybody started clicking. Wayne played unbelievable in the Final Four in 2009. Obviously, man, Ty Lawson was the guy is an absolute, he is a cheetah. Like, he had a great year. And so he took over games, and I knew it was game over when we took the court.
Finally get to cut down the nets. It's got to be one of the best feelings, obviously. What are the celebration, like with those guys after that, and it finally happens? It's got to feel like, the weight's lifted off your shoulders and you've really, accomplished everything you've set out for and puts an unbelievable cap to the end of your career.
The thing it did for me is like I just felt a weight kind of go off my shoulders because there's so much pressure from the outside because we're so talented and we'd gotten so close, and everyone wanted to talk about, if I lose, would I have a good, be considered one of the better college players? And that kind of weighed on me, but I just wanted to win a national championship because I wanted to leave North Carolina, as one of the best teams. And, I knew that if we had lost in the national championship or had just an awful night, they would kind of forget about how good we were. And we'd worked so hard. We had that, those bonds that it was really cool ending our last game with the guys that came into school on a win on the biggest stage and cutting the nets down. Everyone, it was like closing the book on a great college career with a bunch of great teammates, and we all came to school together for 4 years, and it was just the best way to end it. And it couldn't have been. I mean, it's kind of a cheesy storybook ending, but it was a great way to go out, and to be considered, with a lot, with the tradition in North Carolina, to be considered one of the best teams ever there, and make that argument was super special.
What was the celebration like after after that?
Not as crazy as you would think. I remember I really wanted us to get on the team plane and go back to Chapel Hill so we can go party with this, our other student, like our other, classmates, but there was no way they were going to do that. Everyone came to our hotel. I had a ton of family, and, everyone that was close with me, we all came. We had, celebratory drinks, and I remember it get kind of late. I was kicking it with my brothers, Greg and Ben, my Uncle Sean, and we were right next to a casino. And I remember looking at them, I was like, guys, my luck doesn't get better than this. Let's go test the waters. Walked in there, lost a quick 100, lost a quick 200. I remember looking at them, I was like, man, we got to get the hell out of here before this ruins my night. And so we left, but that was kind of the end of them. That was about 2 or 3, and then we were off the next morning pretty early. Then we really celebrated when we got back to Chapel Hill with all our classmates. It was amazing.
Yeah, that had to be great coming back in, and obviously, being on top of the world, getting back to campus and being able to be around, the student body. It's got to be great.
Oh yeah, and it's one of my favorite parts about winning at Duke was always the rush to change, get dressed, get back to Chapel Hill, and let's celebrate. And it's just the support and knowing that it meant a lot to them as well. Our classmates. I mean, it was fun. I mean, we had a great time. Gave us a heck of a celebration as well.
I love football season. Between college football and the NFL, I'm locked into watching my favorite teams crush it on the field this year. But there's nothing like going to your favorite game in person and experiencing all that exciting energy inside the stadium. I love it. That's why you should check out Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting picks to see your favorite teams play even easier. Gametime Picks filters out all the fluff and makes it really easy to view only the best deals on great seats. The Gametime app makes it really easy to search for the game or event that you're looking for and browse through all the amazing deals they have to offer. When I'm using the Gametime app, I'm always surprised by how many other events I come across outside of just sports. They have deals for concert tickets, shows there too. My favorite feature is the Super Deal, which shows you the best seat value available for any event. I know you'll love Gametime as much as I do, because they also show you the seat view before you buy. So you can get a panoramic view from your seat right there in the app. Plus, you can toggle on the all-in pricing feature that shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code GLORY for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code GLORY for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Well, outside of winning, the championship, obviously March Madness is such a huge part of it. You have another, favorite memory that sticks out between y'all's tourney runs?
The one thing I will say that I really enjoyed is kicking it with my teammates all the time, going back and having a good time after practices and stuff. No one really talks about it. I mean, we did a lot of great things on the court, but we had a great time off the court as well. The whole community and the students. It was a good time, and that's what made the experience enjoyable as well.
You look back at March Madness and what it is now, and what do you think makes it the most polarizing, one of the most polarizing times of sports? College basketball, there's games every single day. Now you got people betting on it left and right. It is just a wild time, and you never know what's going to happen. It's just so much uncertainty about it. What do you think, in your opinion, makes it just so polarizing to be able to, you have to watch it?
Because anybody can beat anybody. One game. I think if they did a 7-game series, the upsets would be eliminated, kind of like the NBA playoffs. The NCAA tournament, nerves kind of mess with people. Teams you look at Virginia, who was, they had some great runs, but also they had some historic losses. And they were one of those teams that, they kind of got upset because their style of play, they played so slow. Yep. And if you got a good lead on them, they don't know how to play fast or play from behind, so it made them vulnerable to getting beat. So you have powerhouses that can lose to, I don't know who they lost to, but when they lost to that 16 seed, and then you saw Purdue get knocked out when they were the 1 seed by a 16 seed. Just anything can happen in the tournament. It's so unpredictable. I think fans really tune into that, and also, it's people like to gamble on it, and it's some of those bets can get interesting, and some of the stuff they bet on. So I think that's a good aspect too.
I think for me, when I bet March Madness and bet the tourney, the most infuriating thing is just, you're talking about the nerves and how when it comes down to these free throws late into a game, it's some of the most, crazy things. Is like a sports bettor sitting here and watching these, because it's nuts. Like you'll have a 80% free throw shooter, you get into these big clutch moments and you can't. Oh, you're tightened up.
And the prop bets are a whole nother ball game too. You got some guy, the game's out of, it's a blowout, and I'm looking over here. Why are you cheering so hard? I just need 2 more rebounds from this dude. I'm laughing. Yeah.
So looking back for you, March Madness being such a legendary time, what was one of the greats of March Madness greats that you feel like you watched whenever you were growing up that make a impact on you?
Sean May. I was in high school. I was a senior when they won it. He had that team, the 05 UNC team, had a great run. Raymond Felton, Christian Leitner, legendary, tournament player, shot against Kentucky. Not like I grew up in the Bird era, but what he did for Indiana State's pretty incredible. So I got to throw him in there, and he's my guy. Yeah, those guys can come to mind.
UNC, obviously, I feel like you guys didn't have much of a football program that was really big and winning a bunch of games for the most part. So basketball was it. What was a typical day on campus like for you, where you obviously had to be stopped everywhere you went for the most part, recognized, pretty well known, walking around for the most part?
Man, honestly, no.
Yeah,
I had my headphones in. It's not like no one really bothered me on campus. It was kind of crazy. You would think that I would get stopped, and people would say, rarely would they do that, but, they treated me pretty normal. One thing I did do was I got a parking pass I stole from the basketball office, and so I always parked in the reserve spots.
Yeah, that's a crucial.
You got one of those, yeah. So
thing.
I was like, man, who are these spots reserved for? And so I got one of those passes. I stole it, and I always laughed about that, parking right next to the building, walking in there. I wonder what other classmates thought of that. But no, I never really got bothered on campus like that. They kind of treated me just like a regular dude. Now, honestly, it's kind of hard to think about, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm couldn't be more jealous of that, to be able to, just walk around on campus and not have to get stopped and not have to deal with the celebrity side of what college athletics and sports brings. And obviously being on TV and people watching you, it gets to the point where people feel like they really know you and have a comfortability to be able to come up and talk. And my campus experience was definitely one that was flooded with a little bit longer walks than normal and definitely running into people. What was the off the court like? What'd you guys do in your free time? How was it? And who do you feel like you were closest to on the team for those years?
Oh, man, it would be Bobby Frazier, Marcus Ginyard, Danny Green, and Mike Copeland. We all came in as freshmen. Me, Frazier, Marcus, and Danny, we all lived together for 4 years. So I would be closest with those dudes. But, I mean, man, we went to dinner after every practice. We were extremely close. We all went out. We all had our really odd tendencies that kind of drove people crazy. But I mean, it was college, and we had a great time. We went out, went to the bars, we partied. That was a great bonding experience as well.
It's a good party scene in North Carolina.
It's solid. Yeah, I mean, if you have the right people, you can make it it can be a great scene. Yeah, I thought it was a great scene when I was there. Yes. I think you'd really like it. I think you would have enjoyed the scene.
I've heard good things about it. It seems like it's a great, great school. It looks fun.
We actually have a bad rap. A lot of people consider UNC, the wine and cheese crowd, because they have the older seats are kind of the lower level of the Smith Center where you play it's kind of filled with donors. There's not a big student section, and it gets a little bad rap because it's such a big arena. But they bring it for the Duke game. I mean, it's one of the best atmospheres in all of sport. But that place can get rocking. It was a great environment, and I think our teams winning and being as good as they were really helped that environment as well. But I would like to see it get I would like to see students closer to the court. I think it could be a little bit better. A
little more rowdy.
My opinion, yeah.
Draft day stories, obviously you leave, you have an unbelievable career, you get that final championship that you've been long looking for, and now it's time to go to the draft. I sit here today and it's been 10 years since I've been drafted. For you, can you believe it's been 15 years since you've been drafted? No, I don't even like saying that. No. It flies.
Yeah.
What was your draft day experience like, and what kind of mindset did you have at the time? Did you feel like you were going to be one of the top picks? Did you feel like, what did you feel like going into it?
I had no clue. My agent was telling me one thing. He thought I'd go 15 to 20, and Coach Williams thought I'd go a lot higher. And I had a workout with New Jersey. I had 2 workouts with them, and they wanted me to come back for a second workout right before the draft. And I couldn't have played better in that second workout. I thought it was a wrap. I was like, listen, if they don't like me after what I just did, it's one of the best performances I put on. I mean, I was like, they're going to take me. I kind of felt like they may take me New Jersey. Had a really good workout. They passed. They took Terrence Williams from Louisville. And I remember, I think 12 might have been, I'm not sure if it was Charlotte, but whatever. When it got to 13, it was Indiana, and Coach Williams looked at me and goes, I think this is going to be you. It's like, big fella, I think this is going to be you. And I was like, my agent looked at him and goes, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he goes there. And sure enough, Stern came out, called my name. I went 13 to Indiana. Agent didn't know him. Like, he was wrong. Coach Williams, I don't know how he was right about that, but I remember being so excited. I had my mom there. My dad there, my older brother, and I was really glad that they were there because they were with me from the start, and it had been a dream of mine to play in the NBA. Regardless of how hard you work, sometimes it's just luck to get to that level, and it was a dream come true. And so I'm glad I got to share it with them, and they were there for me on that moment. It's a big moment for me.
Yeah, I think it's awesome to be able to have your family there with you whenever that moment finally happens. You have to think about all those days of traveling around, playing sports when you're a kid, going to high school for the first time. You're really getting into these moments, and then you make it and you do what you do, and you get a chance to walk across the stage and finally be a draft pick is unbelievable to share that moment with your family, especially for me. I couldn't have appreciated it more. It felt like like everything, you'd worked so hard for is finally, right there in front of you, and you've accomplished something.
Something that was really important for me is like my dad, we had worked so hard since a young age, and he had taught me so much about basketball. And like when I was a young kid, I used to go watch him and his buddies play. I was a young kid, I couldn't play, but I used to always watch. I remember getting older, he always like kind of set aside some time to work with me and help me develop a routine to work on my game, even when I was like in, 3rd or 4th grade. And so the fact that he was there that night meant a lot to me as well. And I could tell like he was super happy for me too. So it meant a lot.
You get to Indiana, the team had some, notable guys your rookie season. You had Roy Hibbert, Danny Granger. Who'd you click with on that team the most as you get in there? And did it feel like a good fit for you?
We were a pretty good team. The one guy I clicked with instantly was Roy Hibbert. He's one of my all-time favorite teammates. He's a great dude. Josh McRoberts was good too. He was on that team. He was a Dookie, but he made me feel welcome. Both of them were great teammates. But Josh wasn't there as long as Roy. And Roy would call and check up on me, and we would work out before practice. So he really kind of integrated me and was like a great teammate to me. And that's a guy I clicked with instantly, Roy.
Do you have a core memory of Larry Bird and him welcoming you to the team, or just, it had to be probably a pretty sick moment?
Man, there's so many Bird stories. I just feel like mine's not going to live up to what everyone else says. I remember being in Minnesota, and there was a really good defensive coach for Indiana, and he thought I could be a really good defensive player, so he kept talking about it. And I guess he mentioned something to Bird, and Bird looked at me. It was Dick Harder, and hell of a name, but he looked at me and he goes, "I'd give you 50." And then just walked away. And I just laughed. But yeah, no, I like playing for Bird. I mean, he was a very direct, honest dude. Good smack talker.
I bet. He's probably got years and years and years on the court of being able to, still bring it in the day to day in the NBA. Still, Paul George, David West come in a little later in your career as you're there. You guys start winning some games. How did they change the overall dynamic for your team when they came in?
PG was actually pretty young, so he was like kind of developing, and I was there when he kind of like, broke onto the scene and really like said, "Hey, I'm going to be a big time player." PG was like just kind of evolving into the player he was, but David West was a veteran. Man, he played in the NBA forever. I think he was a all-star a couple years, but he was a great leader for that team. And when he came, he brought like a winning mentality as far as like, embracing the young guys and making sure we're doing the right things to win. He was a great leader for that team. And I will say, like, man, he was reliable. Like, when we needed a bucket, yeah, PG was on the team, but we went to like D West for a lot. I mean, he was almost automatic in that mid-range. If we needed a bucket, I always noticed that we drew up a play for D West, and he delivered. Yeah, he was big for that team. That team wouldn't have made that run without D West for sure.
You guys had some really, really good runs in there that were, I remember watching these runs. I was, in college watching you guys play, and real talent, really, really close to being able to get to the point where you guys could almost get it done.
You play against LeBron in his prime 11 times in 1 year. It's tough.
Yeah.
We took him to 7 games, about as good as you can get with that Miami team. They were super talented. They were more talented than us. D Wade, Bosch.
You guys gave them hell in those series, though, for sure.
We gave ourselves a chance. We took it to a Game 7, and I've always said this, man. When we got to that Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals at Miami, like LeBron, like I remember my brother was on the team. I looked at him and was like, man, it's hard to believe someone was better than LeBron. Like, I can't believe how good he is tonight. Like, it was just like he's not going to lose. And I remember 5 minutes into the game, they just like they had already established a big lead, and they were dominating us in every aspect. And a big part of that was LeBron's presence, because he was playing defense, he was passing, he was making shots. It was incredible.
Is that the toughest guy you had to face during your career in the league, probably?
When LeBron turns it on and he wants to win, yeah, there's no question. Yeah.
Who do you think for you gave you the most trouble when you were on the court throughout your time there?
I had to guard Carmelo for a quick stint. And, I was like, basketball, like, is changing to where, like, it's positionless. And I'm like a power forward. And so you would see bigger guards that are quick kind of slide into that power forward position, and I would get kind of matched up with them. I remember I got matched up with Carmelo, and Carmelo's actual first step is super explosive. Like, his first 1-2 steps, like, even though he doesn't look extremely athletic, like, his first couple steps are up there with about anybody at that time. And I remember him just blowing by me real quick and just be like, dang, barely saw that. Just, he'd go straight to his left. He pulled up, dotted me up a couple times. Then I gave him a couple quick fouls, try to bang him up, throw him off his rhythm. But when Carmelo got hot, like, he's not passing it, and he's going to shoot over 3 people. Like, Carmelo Anthony was so talented, it's hard to tell him what a bad shot is when he gets it going. Yeah. Like, that was a problem. I mean, he was an issue. Yeah. Yeah,
because he made some of those bad shots just look easy.
Yeah.
Go back to the Heat series a little bit. You guys had a little beef between there. You guys were, obviously you're vying for a title. You're fighting. You're scrapping a little bit. Specifically Birdman, D Wade, and Haslem. He talked about getting you back. I saw an interview on that. Did you ever feel like you would actually maybe get into a scrap on the court when you were there? Did it feel like it would ever get to that point where maybe you would have to throw down?
So the Birdman situation is different than the D Wade and Haslem. The Birdman, Paul George shoved Birdman, and Birdman didn't know who shoved him, and so he thought I got him, and so obviously he laid me out, and I was so confused when he like pretty much pushed me down from behind. I was like, what is going on? Like, why is he pissed? But I knew that he pushed me, and so, I kind of had to be smart because I'm not a player. I'm not, I wasn't talented enough to be a player that can like get multiple techs in an important playoff game. Like that would really put our team in a hole. But I was confused, and I remember Birdman coming over to me after the series and trying to apologize. I was pissed off because we lost, and I thought it was a cheap shot. And so I'm not about like, yeah, that's cool, but I wanted to get him back, and so I wasn't really receptive of his apology, and so that one kind of bothered me. I don't know if he's over it. I don't really care, but I'm over it. The Haslem situation, obviously, I put a hard foul on D Wade. Like we were a physical team, and we were trying to set a tone for the game. I came in, D Wade was going to the hoop. They'd been borderline dirty, could have been. A lot of people watching it. It was a hard foul. Back in, when I was playing, there was a lot of value into fouling people hard. And not dirty, it was just part of the game. And I got D Wade pretty good. Haslem thought it was a cheap shot, so he came in and absolutely gave me a haymaker when I had an open run to the basket, which he ended up getting suspended. So did Birdman. Kind of helped us a little bit, but yeah, they got me. I never got Haslem back. Haslem's one of those guys that like a quick temper. Like, be careful with him. Like if you get into it with him, you better be ready.
You better be ready to rock.
Yeah.
There was also a Metta World Peace, that happened a little bit.
Oh, I love that one. That's actually one of like Ron Artest, man, he's a great dude. I don't know if you've ever met him. Like he's like
I've talked to him a little bit.
Off the court, man, he's like one of the nicest dudes ever. And he's we've all seen like Ron lose it a little bit.
Yep.
And I remember I was having a good game against New York, and I felt like somebody bumped me in my back, and I was like, no way. And I was pissed. I was ready. I was like, turned around, I saw it was Ron. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to mess with Ron. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to mess with Ron. Like, Ron's going to get me back if I do something in some capacity, like whether it's like now or later on in the year, he's going to take my head off if I try to fight him. And I remember turning around and be like, oh, my bad, Ron. And a lot of people hit me up and kind of like, man, I can't believe you did that. And I always tell them like, I'm sure you would have kicked Ron's ass. Yeah, so I'm always like, sure. Yeah, man, dude's a big dude, by the way. I mean, look on TV, he doesn't look as big as he is. When you see him in person, he's a big dude. And I wasn't gonna. I just
pick and choose those battles.
Yeah, he was a guy that was on the list. Like, hey, I'm not gonna really mess with him. So.
You always had a couple injury setbacks and during your career. It happens in sports, obviously. How tough was it to keep bouncing back from those and having to keep working your way through those situations?
It's very difficult, especially my rookie year. Because of my college career, I put a ton of pressure on trying to be a great pro. I almost put more emphasis on, proving people wrong and trying to be a good pro than actually developing my game and focusing on being a good basketball player. And when I got injured, I had a really bad concussion. And I know you played football and you dealt with that. I had a concussion for 8 months. And nothing, like I wasn't getting better no matter what. I was dizzy. I had vertigo. And then I went to Mickey Collins. I went to Pittsburgh. And, I couldn't figure it out. I had to actually go home and leave the game for a little bit because I was putting myself in so much stressful situations and trying to get back on the court that it was counterproductive to me getting healthy. And so I remember going to Pittsburgh, and the Pacers, some of the doctors went with me, and they shut me down for the year. And it was tough. And I wanted to have a good year, my rookie year, especially after the college career that I had. And I had these headaches. I was pissed off. I was depressed. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't get better. And so I had to go home and get away from the game and actually allow myself to heal. That was extremely difficult.
Did you feel like there had to feel like times during that? That's unbelievably long amount of time for a concussion. Like 8 months is, normally, max 4 or 5 weeks, like depending on what it is. But that's serious.
Yeah, and I was scared, and I remember I could never get comfortable. I had so many headaches at the time. I was like, man, I got a new appreciation for life. Not even just like playing. Like I can't even sit down and watch TV, and not be in pain during that time. But that was Mickey Collins, and going to Pittsburgh was, when I saw him and he kind of gave me a game plan. That's when I started getting better. He gave me hope, and once I got that, it was. I continued to get better and better. I wasn't putting myself in situations to allow myself to heal. It was counterproductive to the concussion.
You spent time with a few different NBA teams during your career: Pacers, Raptors, Bobcats, Spurs. Was there a coach, throughout this time in the league that, helped you the most or really made an impact on you?
Assistant coach Vitaly Potapinko, or I'm saying his name wrong, European guy. I think his first stint was with the Pacers, and he worked with me and Roy like every single day before practice. And he was a former player, and so we had a really good bond, and he taught me a lot. And kind of like it was good to have somebody to work with that was a former player, because they kind of knew, what you go through, and, you could be a little more real and honest, and they, you could relate with them a little bit more versus like a coach that hasn't played, that's just Xing and O you and trying to, there can be a little disconnect there, but he was big. I only played for Charlotte 1 year. Steve Clifford was an amazing coach. And I didn't play a lot for Charlotte, but I really liked the way that he practiced. I mean, he came in, he practiced hard, which in the NBA sometimes during the season, there's not a lot of practice, but I really respected him because he came in and he had practices and he got a lot out of the team.
You spoke a lot about your time in Toronto. I played in Canada too for a year and got a chance to spend some time. I was playing in Hamilton, which was right outside of Toronto. How was it being in Canada, playing for that organization, and what do you think you like so much and made it special for you?
It's my favorite city I ever lived in. Toronto's amazing.
It's good.
Great fans. We sold out every single game when I played for Toronto. It was really cool. They supported us. Amazing city. I will say, like, coming in and out of Canada and having to go through customs, that's why it gets a bad rap.
Yep.
If it was in the U.S. and you didn't have to deal with that all the time, man, it would be like a huge destination for a lot of free agents. Like that program, they have a ton of support. The management gets them what they need. It's a great program and a great city. Besides, it gets a little cold, but Toronto's it was a great organization. Love the place.
Yeah, the work visas for coming back and forth a little bit and getting in definitely is a little hectic and gets a little old.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you play in the NBA and you have to come in.
Yeah, you guys are doing it nonstop.
Yeah, 1 or 2 in the morning. It can be a little difficult.
I saw a trainer tell a story about you having a fun weekend in Vegas where you ended up saving a friend from choking. Is this a true story?
Man, I can't believe that you dug that up. That's great, man. That was my cousin, Andrew. Like we weren't drinking. There was no party. There was he was just eating at a restaurant. And I look over at him and he's hitting himself. And I'm like, man, what the hell's wrong with Drew? And then he kept hitting himself harder. And so my buddy, my best friend, Ross Wellen, Moose, we call him Moose. He's a huge dude, like 6'9", 315, big dude. Once he found out Drew was choking, he was like, I'm going to give him a Heimlich. And so Drew stood up, and Ross tried to give him the Heimlich. And I'm like, you're doing it wrong. And he was like, And for some reason, I remember, like, you got to try to break the ribs. Like, you just got to go at him. I was like, give him to me. And I remember, like, being like, wham! And, like, just lifting him off and seeing his legs dangle like that and trying to break his ribs to get, like, in that upward motion. And after about the third one, the piece of food came out, and he started throwing up. And I was like, hey, man, what in the hell's wrong with you?
Wow.
And, like, everyone was looking at us. It was in a restaurant. And I was laughing. I thought it was hilarious. And there's probably not one person in there that thought we were sober. We were dead sober. There was no foul play, no nothing. It was early in the morning. We had just got there, and he actually choked on like a yogurt sorbet or something weird, like something that you don't choke on. And that was
wild story. Playing
crazy.
hero in your life for sure. 2017 post NBA, you decided to go overseas, play in China. You know, a lot of guys do that. I'm interested in like, you know, how was the psychological aspect of that decision? You know, was it a hard decision to go play in a different league and go do that, or just one of those things where you felt like you just wanted to keep playing?
I would say it's one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And I put so much pressure on myself to be a good NBA player. I kind of lost a little bit of love for the game, and I was playing to like prove people wrong and not really, playing because I love the game. And, you know, I had a lot of criticism that I was listening to. I was listening to the wrong people. Never good when you try to prove the media wrong, or you have a journalist you don't like, so you're trying to have big games so you can rub it in his face. China, like when I went over there, like I just got to focus on basketball, and I couldn't, because of the language barrier, I couldn't understand what other people, so I couldn't know if people were criticizing me or not. And I had somebody in my life, I had a mentor who was a skills guy that I'd been working with, that, he changed my mindset, and it was just like a huge shift for me. And not only did he make me a better player, but I became a different person. And when I went to China, my love for the game came back. And in the Chinese league, as an import, you have to score. Like, scoring's huge. You only get 2 imports per team. And so you're like, if you're not performing, there's a lot of pressure for the imports to score. And so I had to get back and develop my game. I was getting plays drawn up for me, which in the NBA, I just became like a defender, rebounder, and I'll have, my times to score when I get it. It's not like they're drawing up plays for me, but in China, like, they were drawing plays, and I was starting to get back, get my confidence up, playing good again. And I just got away from all the BS in the States and just got to focus on basketball. And the other story I like is Rosswell and Moose, my buddy from my hometown. I called him, and I was a little nervous about going to China. I was like, I'm nervous about going to China. Do you want to go with me? I was like, I'll pay you to be my roommate. What I want is, like, I want you to rebound for me whenever I need a rebounder, but I want you to come to China. He was in Poplar Bluff, not doing much. Obviously, if you can just pick up and leave for China, like, he ain't got a lot going on. And so he was like, I'm in. And so when he went with me to China, just me and my best friend Ross from my hometown, I mean, we had a great time. And one of my favorite things about China is at the end of the year after that first season, I remember sitting in the hotel, and it was our last day, and Ross looked at me and said, I'm not going back. I was like, I'm staying in China. And I was like, what? And he'd got on the Chinese dating apps, and he had our translator that was like working the system for him, and he got married, and he had a baby in China. And so he lived there all the way up till mid-COVID. Then they moved back to the States.
Wow.
Found his family in China. I love that story.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that for sure? What do you think the biggest difference, obviously the language barrier, but CBA and NBA is, what's the biggest difference you think?
Chinese basketball league's physical. Yeah. It's much more physical. The NBA game's gotten a little softer. The Chinese league is like the NBA in the 80s. Like, it's a grind. Like, it is physical. They foul. They go inside more. Like, they draw post-ups. They don't just hemorrhage threes and buy into the analytics. It hasn't really hit China yet, but, yeah, it's physical. And China, the whole load management, rest and recovery, they would laugh at that.
Non-existent.
We're talking,
Non-existent.
I have an arthritic knee, and some days I wake up and I'm like, it's because this wasn't the NBA. This was China. And this was like just grinding it out in China. Like, this is their culture, man. They just work. And I almost packed up my bags. I was just like, man, this is too much. 2-a-days, sometimes film at night, 9, 10. After 2-a-days, I was completely exhausted. But you go to China, you're going to work for sure.
What'd you like the most about playing over there?
I like the fact that I didn't have to deal with, worrying about listening to other people or facing criticism. I just got to focus on the game and hoop. I got away from everything. Like, there was not a lot of distractions for me.
Really is tough to have to deal, with the professional media and having to deal with trying to prove people wrong and hearing critics and getting just nitpicked on every single, piece of your game. Were there any comments, like, specifically that, analysts said that, stuck with you that throughout the years that, any real moments that stuck out to you?
Yeah. This one really messed me up is there was a media guy that he wasn't criticizing my play, he was criticizing my intelligence. And he made a comment on Twitter or something that really, like, bothered me, and almost bothered me to the point where I wanted to approach him about it. But I really wish that I would have had the mindset that, that guy can think what he wants to think, and he can have those beliefs, and he has a right to think that, but it should never have the impact that it did on me or what I thought of myself. And I think I let that get to me a little bit too much. But also, kind of like you, I'd put so much pressure and expectations on myself to be a great pro that I'm not even sure, I could have ever met those expectations I placed on myself. Instead of playing the game, I had put too much pressure, and it became not as enjoyable.
Yeah, I think it weighs on you a lot whenever, that's the thing that a lot of people don't see. As much as you have this outside pressure on everything, the internal pressure of wanting to try and be great and to accomplish the goals and dreams that you have for yourself is almost 10 times more overbearing and overpowering on yourself.
Yeah. I want to answer that because there was one off season that I'd put so much where I'd worked so hard and I didn't get a lot of playing time. And the frustrating part was that I never got the chance to showcase some of what I had improved on. And, I'd gotten buried on the bench, and I was just in a dark place because I wanted, to have such a good career. And I just beat myself up over it that it was starting to affect my life. And so I wish I would have had a different mindset earlier on like I do now. And I would have, I don't know if I would have had a better career. I would have had a much different mentality, which would have been good for me as a player.
I think it takes time to be able to develop that a little bit too, and obviously, look back and reflect on things and see how it really affected you in the moment and in that time. It's something that comes with time, and we always wish you can kind of go back and instill yourself with the knowledge that you have now. As men, hair loss is a stressful reality. No one wants to lose their hair, but for some, it's actually very common. And now with Hims, the solution is simple. Try Hims Hair Loss Solutions and you'll be joining hundreds of thousands of subscribers who got their flow back. With Hims, you can start seeing your hair grow back in as little as 3 to 6 months. Hims provides access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your couch. They offer personalized chewable, oral, spray, and serum treatment options so you can find what works best for you. The process is simple and 100% online. Just answer a few questions and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to your door. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, so if you feel like you're losing a part of yourself with your hair loss, get Hims and get your confidence back. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Johnny. That's HIMS.com/Johnny for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/Johnny. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is right for you. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. You still go back to UNC a lot, show a lot of love there. What's your prediction for this year on the team and how they're going to be?
They're going to be a contender. UNC is going to get better as the year goes on because they have two talented freshmen in Jackson and Drake Powell. They're playing a lot now, but I really feel like they're going to develop, and they're NBA players. They're super athletic. They have the potential, and I think as the season goes on, we're going to really see what they can do. And RJ Davis, one of the best players in the country, we're a contender. We're a Final Four team for sure.
Love that. Are there any players on the team you think people need to look out for that are going to come onto the scene and really make their mark this year?
In Jackson, Drake Powell. I just mentioned them, but I'll throw somebody else because I just talked about this. Seth Trimble. He's having a good year. He's been doing some things. He's a guy who I really like because sometimes in college basketball, young kids think they have to score to have a good game. There's so much more to basketball than scoring. And he provided or did the things that the team needed for him to do so the team could win. So he sacrificed scoring and played the game the right way. And now you're starting to see him get his confidence with scoring and more freedom from the coaching staff because they have the confidence in him. And I think he's going to continue to get better and better and break out.
How do you think this coaching staff has done since, after Roy's retirement, obviously coming in, you're having to replace the legends, really tough?
Yeah, I think Hubbert's a great coach. I think, one thing he did that's one of my favorite all-time wins is, he handed Coach K his last L on the biggest stage in the rivalry at the Final Four. We never met in the tournament. So that was a good way to start his coaching career. And, I see him work. I think he's a good guy. He's a great guy. He's a great coach. He works hard, and the players really like him. So I think that matters.
Here we are, life after basketball, just two retired guys who decided to hang it up. It's always interesting to hear, how the adjustment was when you finally decided to make that decision.
The adjustment, man, I remember so I had 4 knee surgeries. In the last one, the doctor had told me, I probably shouldn't play. My knee became arthritic, and so I retired right there. It's like, I'm done. I want to walk when I'm 50, 60. But there was like a huge, all of a sudden I had a massive amount of free time. I didn't know what to do. And it's not like I felt lost. I was just kind of figuring it out. And I feel like I may be doing that the rest of my life. But I don't play basketball just because I've always approached it from trying to get better or, from a competitive standpoint. But I'm still figuring out. I mean, I enjoy my life. I'm having fun. It's just like basketball was just such a big part of my life. I'm still trying to figure out life after basketball.
I think being around it, for me, obviously getting a chance to still do a podcast, be able to be around other sports guys a little bit. I get to hear a lot of different perspectives about, for everybody, it's really tough getting to that point. For me, the free time and being able to find other things, the golf for me has been a huge, addition to my life to be able to try and attack it in a way that's kind of similar to, the sports life, but, still staying around the game. I get to do, another college football kind of show every week. So I'm still dialed into the games on Saturday. I feel like you're getting a chance to do a little bit of that, obviously, too, on the basketball side with UNC.
Yeah, I'm doing the radio. I enjoy being at the games in their the arenas and I get excited. One thing I do I've always liked to criticize the refs. My grandpa used to take me to the games, and I like to call them out on bad plays. So I get to do that, and not have to worry about them coming or I like to do that. But kind of like you mentioned, it's kind of a figuring out process. But for me, as a basketball player, I know football players, you guys got banged up, but a lot of times, I do a lot of times, I stretch a ton just because it makes me feel so good. My knees have been, playing basketball for so long, it took a toll on them. So as a former athlete, I'm always trying to make sure I'm staying on top of my body, and I really enjoy working out. And, every day I kind of get up and I stretch for about an hour just so I can feel good. And so that's something I've been doing. I don't know if you have a lot of injuries or aches and pains.
I got really lucky, man. I never had to have a surgery, never had to go under the knife or do anything like that, and try my best to stay in shape and still be able to, I don't have the physically athletic toll on my body as much anymore, but still trying to stay healthy and be able to still move around. But luckily, didn't have to have any big problems, big issues.
Yeah, I mean, I would go to the turf field and be like, I'm going to run. And I would get paranoid because I was afraid my knee would start bothering me. And so I'd warm up, sit down for 10 minutes, and I'd get in the car and go. And that was after the surgeries. But I'm kind of like a goal for me is like, as you get older, is like, if you don't, do things, like if you don't run, you're going to lose it. And so I'm trying to figure out how to stay a little bit in shape and not let my body go, because I don't want to be, a former athlete that, sometimes you see some athletes, you're like, man, that guy, he can barely walk. And so that to me, I'm trying to stay on top of my body and health so I don't end up like that.
Last year you joined a bunch of legends, getting inducted to the College Basketball Hall of Fame. How was that situation for you? And, how did you kind of, find out that was going to, come about?
I'm not sure who called me and told me that. Maybe Coach Williams or somebody, but it was cool. I mean, it was a sign of getting older, that's for sure. Like, not a lot of young guys going in Hall of Fames. I don't know. It was really cool to be recognized. I'll say what I thought was really cool about it is there's a big community in Poplar Bluff who saw me play at a young age, and so they had like followed my career, and they had a lot of pride in some of my accomplishments. So me going into the College Basketball Hall of Fame, I feel like it meant a lot to our community, but I wasn't like as excited as a lot of people think just because I love the game, and I didn't play for a Hall of Fame, but it was really cool, and I think, it meant a lot to my community.
Looking back on your career, what do you feel like you're the most proud of as you look back and you're able to sit back years after and just kind of, reflect on everything?
One thing I'm really, that satisfies me a lot is like, I know I exhausted everything. It's not like, I didn't work ever. I know I tried to, I put everything I had into it. There's no like excuse. There's no like, I wish I would have done that. I did everything that I possibly could have to put myself in a good career. I wish I would have, had a different mindset when I first got into the NBA, because I think that would have really done a lot. I don't know if it would have made me a better player, but it would have made me a different person and much happier. But when I look back, I would say, I gave it everything I had. I'm proud of that. And I come from a small town where we work hard. And so I think that that's a little representation of Poplar Bluff.
I always think about Kerrville, Texas, from where I'm from, and be able to, bring a Heisman Trophy back there, be able to bring a lot of accomplishments and a lot of pride to the town. It's amazing to hear you talk about that in the same way. I was from a town of 20,000 people, from a town of 17,000 people. So, it really does affect the community and affect the people that are in small town places like that.
Oh yeah. There's the bonds that you have with your high school teammates. I mean, that was some of my favorite basketball too. Like, man, they supported us. Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm going to show you a video, and we'll get your little reaction to it for sure and see how it goes.
Here's my top 5 UNC players of all time. I gotta go with Raymond Felton at number 5. At number 4, I'm rolling with Antoine Jameson. Going with James Worthy at number 3. At number 2, no doubt, the GOAT. And at number 1, none other than Tyler Hansbrough. This man did it all. Won a national title in 2009. He's the all-time leading scorer in school history. He's also got the most made field goals, free throws, and offensive boards as well. And the rest of his resume is too long to even name, but impressive nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that because of the players that, the other players that he mentioned. It just, it's Michael Jordan's greatest player ever play. He ranked me above him. It's pretty hard to imagine for me, but
it's still got to feel great to be able to be recognized as one of the greatest, people that step foot onto campus. I know it's something that you probably, hearing you talk today and kind of how you are, it's not something that you set out to be. You obviously, were a great team player, a guy that had an unbelievable team goal to come in with your brothers and be able to, accomplish something in a team sport. But it has to feel great to still be able to, walk around campus now, be able to have made, such an impact and leave such a legacy there that, still years and years later is still fresh in people's minds.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all that stuff has meant a lot to me just because it's, evidence of the work I put into the game. But sometimes, I'm a guy that there was a manager that used to rebound for me before every practice. And I remember there's qualifications that you have to get at UNC to get your jersey retired, and I had met those. I remember we were sitting down like, oh, man, we joked Worthy, Jordan, Hansbrough. We just started laughing just because we view those guys as like Superman. And, it was just funny that, someone would put me in that category. just because of who they were.
You know, now that you analyze Tar Heels basketball a little bit, and you're there in the front row of it, you know, how would you have analyzed yourself as a younger player?
Sometimes I would have been a little frustrated. I was a little selfish at times, and you know, all-time leading scorer, you got to shoot some shots that are bad shots. So I was selfish at times, but you know, I worked hard. I didn't take a night off. I would tell you that. So I probably would have liked that aspect, but yeah, I mean, analyzing the game now, I always get mad when players are a little too casual. That rubs me wrong. I don't know what it is, so I wouldn't have been too critical of myself.
I watched you a lot, you know, in your basketball career. Were you a big football guy? Did you watch much? Are you dialed into the game of football, college football while you were there?
That time point I watched a little college football. Right now, college football is too long for me. I think the game it can't be over 4 hours. But you're going to like this. I'd been working on my game, trying to develop, and I hit my first NBA three. And I threw up the Manziel money sign after I threw it. After I made it at Toronto, I don't know why I did that. I guess just because you were everywhere. But I thought it was hilarious.
That's awesome. I definitely didn't know that. How do you want people to remember you and your legacy of you know, being a basketball player, just in general?
You know, it's gonna be corny, man. I'm from a small town. I worked hard I earned everything I got. And, you know, I would like for that to be recognized. Like all the awards I won, I put a lot of hard work in to get that. And I wish a lot of kids today could see all the work it takes to accomplish some big goals, dreams, and what it takes to win. And I think a lot of kids get frustrated, especially in the transfer portal and being able to leave so quickly and not putting in the work to get the results that they want. That's how I would like to be looked at.
More than anything, I appreciate you coming out here. Appreciate you taking the time to be able to come on the show, tell your story. You know, thank you all guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode, my man. It's official. The holidays are around the corner. That means lights, gifts, and get-togethers. So give the gift to Mando. I can think of a few friends who would appreciate it. Not that they smell or anything, but it's way better than whatever they're using now. So why is Mando the MVP? It's clinically proven, 72-hour odor control. It's safe for the whole body, and it stops odor before it starts. Plus, you can choose from 3 different formats: invisible spray for super easy application, solid stick, which is a familiar favorite, and invisible cream, which rubs in like lotion. My go-to is definitely the stick, but I love using the spray or cream when I'm trying to get up my hygiene game. Plus, Mando is available in 4 cologne quality scents. Bourbon leather is sweet and sophisticated. Mount Fuji smells fresh and woodsy, and there's also Pro Sport and Clover Woods. Mando whole body deodorant is powerful enough for the toughest body odor, but gentle enough to use everywhere, since it's aluminum-free, baking soda-free, cruelty-free, dye-free, and vegan. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers or to secure some last-minute stocking stuffers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Johnny at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Don't let the meat sweats get you this holiday season. Your family and friends will thank you.